Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:06 this busy Wednesday morning. Thanks for tuning into O'Connor and Company. We're going to get you informed and up to speed on everything going on here in your world, your country, your town, maybe even in your family. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas is joining us. At 7:35, Representative Scott Perry. 7:35, Megan Flynn talk about the vote yesterday over the RFK Stadium venture. And then at 8:35, Jamie Brennan gives us an update on the Frederick County School Board. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Yesterday in Manhattan, there was a decision of sorts with regard to the ongoing prosecution of Donald Trump, the sentencing specifically in the so-called hush money case. That, of course, has to do with a non-disclosure agreement that has been sort of twisted into a would-be felony where President Trump, we're told by Alvin Bragg, the Soros-backed prosecutor in Manhattan, actually in some way laundered campaign funds or in some way gave himself a illicit campaign donation by having Stormy Daniels receive this non-disclosure agreement. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble explaining it because it's completely nonsensical how this crime was invented. It doesn't matter. The whole purpose of this prosecution, of course, was to persecute Donald Trump publicly to either damage him or even prevent him from running for office. Well, he ran, he won, and now the sentencing is still pending. Alvin Bragg, again, a Soros-backed prosecutor, declined to move forward with the sentencing process, but he did not dismiss the charges. He said that he would postpone this. Potentially, he can come back at any time during the Trump presidency and say, okay, let's do the sentencing now. So what does this all mean? And is it even legal? Is it fair? Whenever we involve a Soros-backed prosecutor, we bring in the expert. That, of course, is Cully Stimson. He's a former prosecutor himself. He's the senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation, and he literally wrote the book about all of these Soros-backed prosecutors. They're called rogue prosecutors. They're all over the country, although most of them, Cully, seem to be losing re-election after just one term, even though they're in places like San Francisco and Los Angeles. The voters there are sick and tired of them. Cully, thank you so much for joining us today.
Great to be with both of you. And, you know, they're really hurting my book sales because 6 of the 8 we featured are now out of office. But I'll take the win.
Well, and yeah, but one of them is still in our backyard. Apparently the voters of Fairfax County aren't as wise as L.A., San Francisco, Chicago, et cetera, because we've still got one here. So it's important for our audience. Cully, did I lay out exactly what happened here properly? How long can you postpone sentencing? Isn't this justice delayed for the accused?
Well, not only that, think about it this way. They're actually encouraging suspended disbelief or animation because they're ignoring the Supreme Court decision, the immunity decision. They're essentially saying, don't pay no attention to what's happening behind the Supreme Court curtain there. We'll just sort of hang this potential sentence over his head until his presidency is over because, of course, we respect the office of the presidencies, which they wrote in their letter. But a normal judge getting an opinion that would directly impact a case from the Supreme Court would then apply that opinion to the facts and decide whether they can even go forward. Because remember, that opinion said presidents have absolute immunity for official acts. They have no immunity for unofficial acts, but they're presumptively immune for actions taken within the outer perimeter of their official responsibilities. And number one, you can't look into the president's motives, and this is the kicker. You cannot look at the private records or testimony or admit any of the same in your trial. So a real judge, a normal judge, an apolitical judge would look at all the evidence that was admitted at trial and then try to say, okay, was there just one little minor piece of evidence that was prohibited now, admitted, and therefore it's just wouldn't affect the outcome? Or is 60, 70, 40% of the evidence that was admitted at trial now out, and the jury would have rendered the same decision? And that no judge would a normal judge would send this back, would dismiss the case, and then let Alvin Bragg decide whether he wants to go forward.
Well, so a normal judge, obviously, is not Judge Merchan in this case, as you're laying out here. So just in terms of the facts and the legal reality here, by postponing the sentencing process, does this mean postponing until after the Trump presidency for 4 years? Or does this mean, as I just suggested, that at any time over the course of the next 4 years, regardless of whether the president is engaged in diplomatic efforts with a foreign nation, trying to, end a war in Ukraine or what have you, if he wanted to damage the president publicly, Alvin Bragg can knock on the door of the judge and say, okay, let's start the sentencing process tomorrow and use this as a political weapon?
Well, he already has used it as a political weapon, but he has said in his letter to the judge that they'll postpone it until after he's out of office because of the unique aspects of the president's responsibilities as a commander-in-chief. And so he's just saying, we'll wait until after, Your Honor, please wait until after this guy's out of office. But the judge doesn't have to listen to Alvin Bragg.
Right.
The judge should and could, and normal judges would, apply the Supreme Court's immunity decision to the facts at bay, to the facts at bar, and then kick it back, dismiss the case, and then put it back in Alvin Bragg's court. All Bragg is doing is saying, let's just hit pause until after this guy's out of office. And most judges would just reject that outright.
This is so embarrassing for the courts. I mean, this just makes a mockery of everything. But couldn't then Trump, since they're going to wait until he's out of office, could Trump then just pardon himself and the whole thing goes away? So what's the point?
No, because remember, Julie, the pardon power only applies to federal cases, not the state cases. So you have the Georgia case and the New York case, which are hanging out there because they're state cases. But look, you're not. Trump's lawyers are not going to let this sort of legal purgatory hang out there. They're going to appeal, because it's an immunity decision from the Supreme Court. They're going to appeal Merchant's sort of suspended animation holding. If Merchant goes along with Bragg, they'll immediately appeal this to the state appellate court because it's based on the immunity decision. And they'll get some relief there. There's no way an appeals court is going to let Merchant just sort of tread water for 4.5 years.
Speaking with Cully Stimson, senior legal fellow at Heritage Foundation, and he wrote the book Rogue Prosecutors about, prosecutors just like Alvin Bragg and Steve Descano in our backyard. Yep. Setting aside the unique nature of the presidency, is there any legal precedent that you can think of where a defendant has been found guilty by a jury and then the sentencing is delayed by over 4.5 years?
The only situation where I can imagine that's happened, and it has happened, I just can't name a case, is where the person is cooperating.
Oh, I see.
And they're cooperating to bring down a bigger fish. There's no bigger fish than the president. This is a sui generis case. This is unique in and of itself. So, no. And of course, the Supreme Court acknowledged there's no case like that.
And again, in a case like that, where you've got a prosecution and then you're going to hold off sentencing because the person is acting as a cooperative witness to go after someone else, then you use that sentencing as this threat, as this weapon, as this, you do what we want or else we're going to do this. So again, this is it is a lower court. It is this court in New York City having this sort of power, this sort of ticking time bomb that's just sitting there against the president of the United States is absolutely untenable in any we would be laughing at a foreign country that has a setup like this and is going through something like this. We'd be yelling at Panama that they got to stop this banana kangaroo court against their leader if they do this sort of thing. Why? How can this continue?
Well, look, a cooperator has a legal sort of Damocles hanging over his head. This is a political sort of Damocles that they're wishing hangs over their head. But this case is going to go away. There's no way that Trump's lawyers, who have just been outstanding in this case, are going to let this happen, nor the appeals courts in New York. And so this fiction, this fantasy of the left of perp walking Trump into prison is not going to happen.
Thank you so much, Cully. Great stuff. Thanks for sorting it all out
Cully.
for us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
6:15, WMAL traffic and weather.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Upgrade to a new walk-in shower from Long Baths. Call now to get your free estimate today. Traffic and weather brought to you by Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
By the way, Congress is still in session. They call it a lame duck session. You always have to look out what comes out of these gatherings. Yesterday, though, it was an incredibly enlightening hearing. You'll remember that it was revealed that FEMA specifically avoided homes that rightfully were due and entitled to some level of disaster relief during the hurricane cleanup. And they avoided those homes because they had Trump signs out front or Trump flags or any indication that they were supporting Donald Trump. One of the employees was fired, Marnie Washington, and then she came forward and said, whoa, it wasn't just me.
Stating that I was fired. They all alleged that these actions were made on my own recognizances and that it was for my own political advances. However, if you look at the record, there is what we call a community trend. And unfortunately, it just so happened that the political hostility that was encountered by my team, and I was on 2 different teams during this deployment, they just so happened to have the Trump campaign signage.
Political hostility. So she went on to say that this was widespread. All right, FEMA Administrator Deanna Criswell was called under oath before a House hearing yesterday.
So I was very concerned when I learned that a FEMA employee had given direction to her disaster survivor assistance team that were completely at odds with FEMA's mission.
All right, this is the statement that's prepared. I can't believe this sort of thing. I'm shocked to learn this was happening.
Now, according to your employee, Ms. Washington, who was asked, and this is a public report, these orders came, who she stated, so you're telling me these orders came from somebody above? And she said, correct. So what has your investigation gleaned regarding her direct supervisors, the people above her? Have you questioned them, and what have your answers been?
Chairman Perry, we do have an ongoing investigation, and we have questioned other personnel in this chain of command, and we find no information at this point that there was anything beyond her.
Boy, there's a lot of weasel words there, Julie. Ongoing investigation,
so
no information at this point that suggests it's widespread.
She is just, they're running out the clock.
Mm-hmm.
They are hoping that this goes away. Pretty soon, it'll be the inauguration. The media will be distracted. Yeah. Right now, there's nothing to do on Capitol Hill. It's a lame duck session. And she and I have no doubt that these senior staff meetings are like, we just have to weather this storm for a few weeks, and then it'll be over.
But let me just play one other bit here. This is from Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who is also on this panel. She's from Michigan. Because this sort of tells the real story. Here's the FEMA director, as you just heard, saying, we have an ongoing investigation. I was shocked to learn this. This is outrageous. Serious. This is not our policy. So far, there's no information that would suggest or evidence that this was widespread. It was an isolated incident, and we fired the person involved. And the fired person says, this came from all across the board. We were all told to do this. Well, now, listen to this exchange with Congresswoman Lisa McClain and FEMA Director Criswell.
I don't know specifically who her supervisor is. I know that there's this individual, Chad, that has in her supervisory chain, but I don't know if that was her specific supervisor.
All right, so she doesn't know who this person's supervisor is.
That's absurd.
Right. No, wait, there's more. So understand, her testimony was there's no evidence or information to suggest that this is widespread. It's just isolated. And then she goes on to say, I have no idea who her supervisor is.
Right.
And this person
doesn't know.
Right. Wait, there's more.
Have you done an investigation on this since November 9th?
We are currently doing an investigation. It started on October 28th.
So as of October 28th, we've done a bunch of investigations, but we have no idea who her supervisor is.
No, I said I personally do not know who her specific supervisor is. I have an agency of over 22,000 employees.
Oh, and this is my favorite part. We are so big, you can't expect me to know.
Maybe that's part of the problem.
Thank you. Vivek, Elon, are you listening to this?
We've got an idea of where you can start.
This thing is so big, and I know I'm the director, but you can't expect me to know at this point. And it's only been 6 weeks,
But also, when you have an investigation, isn't it the first job of the investigation to figure out the chain of command and where this came from?
Yeah. Because I'm going to have to testify on November 19th, so make sure you give me all the information I need to be able to answer honestly to Congress and the American people.
Wild.
Oh, no, it goes on further.
I don't know the
And you have supervisors underneath you. Do you know if anything happened to her supervisor?
This is currently under investigation. The only written evidence we had is from Ms. Washington.
So we terminated Miss Washington 3 weeks after you were made aware of it. Thank God that you were made aware of it, or this could pattern have continuously gone on, because we have layers upon layers, right? You have 22,000 people. I'm sure you have a lot of middle management, right? So you have a crew lead, you might have, I don't know what your hierarchical structure is, but you have layers of management before it gets to you, correct?
We follow a very...
That's a pretty simple question. Do you have layers of management before it gets to you?
A very,
That's a great answer.
accepted chain of command practice.
Wonderful. So I'll use your word. You have a chain of command before it gets to you. But you have no clue about what's happened to that chain of command and why somebody would let that happen under their watch. Do you think that's worthy of investigating?
Thank you, Congresswoman McClain. So that's the revealing moments yesterday about the FEMA. You're right. They're playing out the clock. They're trying to get through this so that they can just, hopefully run and hide. And she'll become the new, executive director, CEO of Red Cross, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. This is sickening. It really is.
It's 6:24.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
6:36 now. It is Wednesday morning, and it's the 20th day of November. Super busy here. As I just mentioned, Scott Perry, Congressman of Pennsylvania and the chairman of that committee that grilled the FEMA director about their discriminatory practices against Trump supporters. He'll be joining us at 7:35. And then we're going to speak with, hold on, let's get those times right, 7:05, excuse me. Then at 7:35, Megan Flynn is going to join us from the Washington Post, talk about yesterday's decision in the Senate about the future of RFK Stadium. And then at 8:35, Jamie Brennan will give us an update on the Frederick County School Board battles. I'm Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie.
Hi. I saw the show schedule, and I was like, RFK Bill in D.C. government.
RFK
so many
Senior.
RFKs. I know.
Exactly. I have to keep reminding everyone. It's the dad and the stadium named after him. Joining us right now, as he always does at this time on a Wednesday, is Syndicated columnist and Renaissance man Cal Thomas. Calvin.
Yes, good morning. I just want you to know I would never name a son after me. It would be too much pressure on him.
That's right. How can our new Secretary of Health and Human Services dare to compete with the legacy of his father? I mean, it is an extraordinary development, isn't it? When they keep referring to this as the Avengers, this group of people that President Trump has put together as this coalition that I think you could rightfully argue helped him win the election, from RFK Jr. to Tulsi Gabbard to Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and then you've got pretty diehard right-wing MAGA types like Pete Hegseth and Congressman Gates. It's like it's quite an extraordinary Penelope. Can I use that word?
Penelope. Is it Penelope or Penelope? Anyway.
No, I wasn't talking about your old girlfriend Penelope. No.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I never touched her. I never had anything.
Thank you.
Oh dear.
Okay, now look, my favorite though, you left out my favorite, is Linda McMahon. Now she's going to body slam the Department of Education.
That's right.
She's going to put a chokehold on everything. And
Randy Weingarten, you're going down. Sister.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Look, let's be serious for a moment, which is difficult for me to do. I think it is very important for the public and for the government to hold these confirmation hearings. You've got some serious charges. Granted, some of them are brought up by Democrats to try to smear Trump's nominees, but they're still serious issues, and they need to be probed. And not just the sexual allegations, but the whole idea of experience in government and managing such massive departments as the Department of Defense and HHS. So let's go ahead with the hearings. Let's ask the questions. Let's let the members of Congress have their FaceTime on TV. Let's let the Democrats play their games as they always do. But let's get the information so we can be confident that those people who want to be and who have been nominated for cabinet positions are competent and credible.
You know, talking about serious issues, and this pivots a little bit away from those issues about the nominees, but Putin is threatening to go nuclear after Biden authorized new missiles that could be used by Ukraine, and this really seems like provocation and wanting to sort of, if you will, go out with a bang. Is the Biden administration trying to complicate things? Yeah, it's the Biden administration trying to complicate things for Trump. This is a complication.
It is, Julie, and I don't know why in the world they're doing it now. This should be, if they do anything, it ought to be in consultation with the incoming administration. Look, I still don't know what the outcome, what the goal of this war is. It keeps getting escalated. Are we trying to push Putin out completely from Ukraine or only partially? Is there going to be some kind of negotiation after Trump comes into office? What does victory look like? Is victory possible? And what if Putin does use nuclear weapons, even limited ones? What are we going to do to respond to that? This is a very, very dangerous time, and it needs mature and experienced leadership. But most of all, we need to be told where this is headed.
Yeah. Also, you know, with all of these news events, with Biden authorizing Ukraine to use longer-range weapons to strike in Russian territory, and then Putin, as Julie just laid out, saying, well, that opens up the door for us to use nuclear weapons, shouldn't they be very, very out front, the Biden administration, saying we are constantly coordinating and discussing and briefing the incoming administration? National Security Advisor-elect Waltz has been in conversation with RT. There should be some signal out front that there is at least communication going between this administration and the incoming administration on something so important.
Right. Not only communication, but continuity. When the United States is perceived by our enemies as being uncertain and wavering, it gives them the opportunity to be adventurous. You've got President Xi now saying that there are 4 red lines that the United States had better not cross. Number 1 was on Taiwan. Well, what are we going to do about that?
Yeah.
When we are not strong, when we are not resolute, it opens the door for our enemies to do bad things and draws us in economically and as far as weapons go into their aura, and it shouldn't be that way.
That's right. We're talking about war here. This isn't about, funding the Medicare accounts or anything. And so, an election was had, a new administration is coming in. You either step down and wait for the new administration to take over the foreign policy here, or you signal to the world that there is, like as you said, continuity. Anything other than those two options is absolutely chaotic and unfair. Cal, before we let you go, though, this Friday is the 61st anniversary of the JFK assassination. We were just talking about Robert Kennedy and Robert Kennedy Jr. I remember you discussing this in the past. You actually have a personal connection specifically to that day.
Well, I was a kid on the way to work at NBC on Nebraska Avenue as a young copy boy. And I was at a stoplight when I heard on my AM radio that Kennedy had been shot. And what I did was I rolled down the windows on both sides. We didn't have power windows back. We barely had automobiles when I was a kid. But anyway, and I started shouting on both sides to people in traffic that Kennedy had been shot. Those 4 days are something that are seared in my mind. I'll never forget it. We didn't have the technology we had today. And it was an amazing time, a terrible time for America. And, Kennedy had such hope and promoting so many things that was attractive to especially young people. Physical fitness, we think today about RFK Jr. is going to make America healthy again.
Yeah.
JFK had this wonderful physical fitness program that I think a lot of people thought it was cool to be fit.
Yeah.
So 61 years, long time, but I'll never forget it.
Well, and you're heading to NBC News on Nebraska. That's about a mile from where we're sitting right now in the WMAL studios. That's
right.
It's a small town after all. Cal, always good to talk to you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Okay.
It's 6:44. We've got a little bit up to date here as we talk about the new nominee for Secretary of Education in the Federal Board of Education, the Federal Department of Education. But, as you know, we like to focus on the local boards of education in our area. And the fact of the matter is that's where, if we do get rid of the Federal Board of Education, Department of Education, all of the focus will be and should be on what goes on in our neighborhoods. As you hear me say all the time, what happens in your house, way more important than what happens in the White House. So let's get you an update on one of the school board elections that we focused on quite a bit this year. It's Maryland, of course, so that means we're just now getting the final certified results. And it turns out two conservatives, Jamie Brennan, who you heard on this program often, and Colt Black, they did make it onto the board. They won in Frederick County. This is huge.
This is huge.
So, of course, Democrats are trying to do a recount.
Of course.
They want to push them off the board. They want to try to see if they can sort of, do what Dems do here in Maryland. Here's a Facebook post from Colt Black talking about this.
Hey, guys. Colt Black, Frederick County School Board.
Colt Black.
Reaching out to all my supporters here this evening. We have just received official word from the Frederick County Board of Elections that Josh Bokey is seeking a recount. Considering he had already conceded to this race, now he's demanding a recount. It just really shows a true lack of character. Truthfully, he should have asked for the recount from the beginning. If I was him, I would have. But you go ahead and concede. So the fact of the matter is, anybody out there who is watching this, who cares about our Board of Education, who cares about conservative school board candidates, we need to get folks out to the Frederick County Board of Elections to observe the counting.
That's right. We got to observe the counting here and make sure that they don't do what they're trying to do still in Pennsylvania. Yeah, here's a quick, we put our WMAL microphones in the room where the recount is going to take place in Frederick County.
I think we all know that precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the Bucks County Board of Supervisors there deciding whether they're going to adhere to the law on their recount. But, same thing, different color. That's exactly what they're trying to do in Frederick County. Think about it. They can't stand the idea of two Republicans getting seats on the Frederick County School Board.
They can't. They cannot. And they really, ultimately, they're tyrants. They can't take that it's the will of the people that have elected these people.
Well, that was Colt Black, who is one of the Republicans who got onto the board, or conservatives, I should say. It's a nonpartisan election. Jamie Brennan, the other one, is going to join us at 8:35. Right now it's 6:52.